All right, and good evening to y'all as we come to you for the Drive the State show here on FHSAA.com. And let me move that out of the way. There we go. Yes, indeed. Hey, we are back here to talk playoffs. Yes, it is that time to talk about playoffs. We're going to do this from 9 o'clock now on to do the Drive the State show for the remainder of the season. That way, y'all can tune in and get your latest scoop and latest fix on what's going on for the playoffs here as we are rolling along here. Hard to believe it's already week 9. 2 hurricanes can do that to you. Before you know it, it goes from week 1 to week 9 like that. And yes, indeed it is. And definitely appreciate everybody joining us here on the Drive the State show. If you got a question, you got a comment as we go through the playoff brackets, you drop those comments, questions wherever you're at, Facebook, Twitter /X, or on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube at FHS Football and click that notification bell. You can also get notifications when we go live as well. So we definitely appreciate y'all joining us here on the Drive the State show here on FloridaHSFootball.com and the FloridaHSFootball.com social media networks. And I already see a question start. I can see a couple questions popping in here, and definitely we'll get to those here in just a moment here. As I'm still kind of really quick here. I'm trying to get this shared out to a couple groups on Facebook. That way they know that we're live, because sometimes these things don't automatically go when we go ahead and do that. So we're just going ahead and post that there. There we go. All right. Yes, Reno, good evening to you. Let's go Florida high school football. Yes, indeed. And good evening to you, Emery. Glad you made it safe and sound through Hurricane Milton. I know Hardy County took some of the brunt of Hurricane Milton. He said it was nerve-wracking, but hopefully normalcy returns to most of us this week and we get to play some football. Yes, some areas still haven't returned to school yet, but hopefully some normalcy will come and be able to give us a nice breather for once. And I hear there's a cold front coming, so we may get some really nice fall weather here soon. So hopefully that'll help as well. And David Kolskowski said, I'm sorry, David, if I'm butchering your last name. I'm trying really hard. Thank you for doing this. It's greatly appreciated. Yes, no, I appreciate y'all tuning in. Share it with your family, share it with your friends, share it with whoever you need to. Share it with your next door neighbor. Yes, we will definitely appreciate everybody joining us and listening to us here as we go through the Drive to State show here, right here on FloridaHSFootball.com. All right, let's go ahead and bring that playoff bracket up. Let's see. Wait a second. Hold on. Oh, there we go. We'll go ahead and bring that playoff bracket up here. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and get this baby started here. Let's go into Class World, the B division. Let me see. Did I put the B division? Oh, there we go. There it is, the A division bracket. Let's start with that A division bracket here as we roll along. As you see, we've got Union County still sitting there at the number 1 seed. Compared to the last time we did the show 2 weeks ago, Union County, they were the number 1 seed then. Nothing has changed there for them in that seeding. And then looking at it, Hawthorne is now bumped up to 2. That's actually wrong. It should be said that the team they should be it should be Baker in that. And I did that on the bracket. So excuse me. They're not playing Hawthorne. Hawthorne's not a 16 seed. It's Baker. Baker would be the 16 seed at 6-2. A minus 0.396 is their rating. Union County's rating is a 16.294. Now you see, I obviously got Hawthorne right there in the number 2 spot there. Hawthorne would host Bluntstown in that 2-15 matchup right there. So again, it's true seeding here in the rural division A bracket. So as you look at it, the rural classification division A bracket, definitely true seeding here. And the same goes in the division B bracket as well. We got a little bit more clarification from Craig Damon yesterday, what it would be like. And for the FHSAA playoffs, especially with the rural division brackets this year. And right now, as it sounds like it's going to probably be 16 teams in the A, 16 teams in the B. The other 2 teams since there's 34 teams, those 2 teams may likely get paired up for like some kind of bowl game or something like that, just to kind of give them something to finish off the season. We'll see what happens there. But Looking at it, some of the biggest movers and gainers, Franklin County, since the last time we were on, dropped 5 spots, and now they're all the way down to number 14. And Bluntstown has made a move up. So they were sitting in the B division bracket, but now they are sitting in the A division bracket. So, yes, Baker has, Bluntstown has made some moves here as we roll along here. And, there's been some changes here. Moorhaven, which was actually a team that was sitting there between the A and B brackets, they're sitting there now. They have dropped 5 spots, but as you can pretty much see it here, this is probably what your playoff field's going to look like here. And you're going to see like Acilla Christian maybe potentially hosting a Pahokee, Jay hosting Holmes County, Chiefland hosting Jefferson County. Some pretty good rural matchups here that we would see here in the rural Division A bracket. And going into the Division B bracket, Lafayette holding that number 1 seed there for that bracket right now. They would host Liberty County, the number 16 seed. And, of course, you can see Marathon down in the Keys. They would like to potentially host Weehawken. Yes, this is true seeding. These teams would travel to wherever the seeding falls. So you got a situation here where Weehawken could be making the trip all the way down to the Florida Keys for a 2-15 matchup with Marathon in that first round of the Division B bracket. So same goes here in Division A, going back to Division A real quick. Okay. It really much anything can happen here in terms of, hey, Pahokee making the long trip all the way from Palm Beach County all the way up to Acilla Christian. That's a very likely scenario. So got to keep that in mind here as we roll along here, that it's true seeding. And this is a test of what could come for the rest of the classifications in about 2 years' time. So keep that in mind as we roll along here. All right. As we go into Class 1A, looking at the Class 1A bracket, Region 1, Providence still holding that number 1 seed in that region. You heard Andre Ellis, who from Duval Sports, say that Trinity Christian is down. Yes, Trinity Christian, they're down, and that's why you're not seeing them, but they're still sitting there. They're sitting at the number 2 seed. They've kind of flip-flopped since the last time we were on with McClay. So there's a battle between the 2 and 3 seeds. I know Trinity Christian tonight was playing their game against Episcopal in a makeup game for district play, and we'll see what happens there, but that won't be counted into the rankings until next week for both of those teams. And David Klaudzowski says, that would be a long trip for Weewa. Yeah, it definitely would be a long trip, but is what you're seeing here with this A and B bracket for rural, this is something that could eventually happen to the rest of the classifications. And I may actually toy around with some of this stuff later on down in the next few days when I have some time, is look at these brackets, look at everything that we've got here, and look at the rankings and see what would it look like if this model was being used in the rest of the classifications. I would be curious to see what the playoffs would look like in that situation, being based on a true seeding, just straight up like a 1 through 16 and the next 1 through 16. So you're taking 32 teams, obviously, into the playoffs, but just the way it's bracketed would be different. But yes, looking at the rest of it, let's go here. You can see that PK Young's still in the mix, but PK Young looking really, really solid here. 5-2 on the season here for the PK Young Blue Wave. PK Young doing pretty well this year. And as you can see here, University Christian, they have managed to get their way back into the rankings here since the last time we were on. And now University Christian sitting there holding that number 6 seed. So again, this is a visual representation of what it would look like to help y'all out as we roll along here in the show. All right. Rolling along here to Class 1A Region 2. First Academy, not outside of the top 6 teams have not changed in this since we were last on. First Academy still sitting there at number 1. Clearwater Central Catholic still sitting there at number 2, but the gap is closed here between the two teams. First Academy 20.160. Clearwater Central Catholic sitting there at 19.113. So it's not very, just a little over a point difference between First Academy and Clearwater Central Catholic here, and Melbourne Central Catholic sitting there at number 3. So let's go back here real quick, because based upon what I'm, we got to keep this in mind with who would host here. So right now, Providence would host a playoff game. PK Young would host in their playoff game as well. McClay would host University Christian as well. Trinity Christian would host as well from their district. So nothing out of the ordinary that would be hosting in the districts there for that region. But in this region, a couple interesting things to note here. So right now, as it would stand, or First Academy would host, Victory Christian would host, Clearwater Central Catholic would host, but in this situation, Melbourne Central Catholic would go on the road as a 3 seed to Crescent City, who Crescent City as a 6 seed would host, as they would be the district champ coming out of District 5. So, yes, you're right. And I'm going to bring this comment up from Emory. Yes, he's seen Lakeland Christian still ahead of Carrollwood Day, despite Carrollwood Day beating them. Yes, that is correct. But I kind of expect that to change once Carrollwood and Victory play. That would change a lot of things. Once we see those two teams play, that would change some things, I think, to be honest with you, Emory. I think that's what would happen there. So, as we roll along here with the rankings here, we go into Class 1A Region 3. With this, Cardinal Newman, nothing's changed in the first top two. Cardinal Newman, First Baptist, 1-2 seeds. Cardinal Newman would be a host. Southwest Florida Christian, they're sitting there, District 1A10. They most likely would be the team that would host that game in the 4-5 matchup against Community School. Same with First Baptist, be a host against Northside Christian. By the way, Northside Christian, last time we were on, they were the only team that was on the outside looking in. Well, now they have jumped in. They're sitting there at number 7. Evangelical Christian has dropped to 9. So now Evangelical Christian would be the only team in that region to be out of the playoffs if this holds. And then St. John Newman would be looking at potentially hosting a playoff game as well, sitting there at the 3 seed with Benjamin sitting there at number 6. All right, as we roll along here to Region 4, no changes there. Chaminade Madonna, huge lead in that region, 20.965. Miami Edison, who has the 2 seed, 5.760. You might as well just go ahead and circle Chaminade Madonna now for that number 1 seed in Region 4 in Class 1A, because they're not moving from that spot. There's no one going to catch them at this point, the way the rankings are looking right now. But Miami Edison still sitting there at number 2. They did moved up a spot. They flipped spots with Archbishop Carroll, who's now at the 3 spot since the last time we were on. True North moves up a spot. St. John Paul II in Boca Raton has moved down a spot. Palmer Trinity, Somerset Key, they have moved up spots. Somerset Key was they were in the top 8 last time we were on, but this time they were not in the top 8 last time, but now they are in the top 8 once again. But again, that is a look at Class 1A. All right. So we go to 2A, Region 1. We got Gadsden County. Where's my water at? Oh, I set my water down somewhere. Actually, it's right here with me. I need to take a swig of water as we're doing this because I'm doing a lot of talking. You know what happens. All right. As we roll along here, Gadsden County sitting there at the number 1 seed in Class 2A Region 1. That actually is not a change of anything, but Gadsden County is now, in terms of the FHSAA power rankings, the MaxPreps power rankings, they are now the number 1 overall team in Class 2A based upon the rankings right now. Gadsden County 20.984 on their ranking here. Pensacola Catholic sitting there at the number 2 seed, 17.547. Nothing has changed here in Region 1 in Class 2A since the last time we were on, except that Freeport is now out and Baldwin is now in as the number 8 seed right now. And you see Mariana holding a number 5 seed despite the fact they're 8-0. So, again, strength of schedule does play a factor here, and Mariana's strength of schedule has not been as solid as what you see Gadsden County, Pensacola Catholic, Bowles, and Taylor County. Despite the fact that Taylor County lost to Florida High, Taylor County is still ahead of them. But as it goes right now, as we're looking at it, Gadsden County would be a host in the playoffs. Taylor County potentially will be on the road. Mariana would host that game to be the district champ out of District 2A2. So Mariana would host that game in the first round. Pensacola Catholic would host Walton in a potential what would be a rematch, but Pensacola Catholic and Walton, they do have to meet next week for decide that district title in 2A1, and then Bowles would host Florida High in that 3-6 matchup. All right. So getting into 2A Region 3, Roger Cruz, good evening to you. Good seeing you Friday night there at Newberry. Your Bradford Tornadoes, well, they're still holding that number 1 seed despite the loss to Newberry. but Newberry moves up to the number 2 seed. The ranking right now for Bradford is 17.852. Newberry's is 13.236. So Newberry and Cocoa have traded places since the last time we were on. Cocoa's rating is 11.566. The question is does Newberry going to have enough with the remaining 3 games between Fort White, Williston, and Trinity Catholic? Will they have enough in those 3 games to catch Bradford for the number 1 seed? We will see how the next 3 weeks play out for Newberry and see how it plays out for Bradford as well. Honestly, I'm trying to think if Bradford has any really tougher games left, but Newberry wins out. I mean, they be 8-2. Bradford could be 9-1. It could be a 1-2 situation. But here's the thing: as we look at this right now, the rest of the didn't change. The only team that has now has come in here into the bracket here is the Villages right now, and the Villages is now slid in to the rankings, and they are sitting there at that number 7 seed. Now you see Lake Placid at 8. Lake Placid is technically 11 in the rankings right now in Region 2 with a minus 3.913 rating. But as we go through it, Bradford would be on the road to Lake Placid because Lake Placid would be the district champ. And yes, here you go. Emory Williams-Smith said that would be a long road trip for Lake Placid to Bradford County. You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Same goes for Palaca. They would go on the road to Calvary Christian and Clearwater for that 4-5 matchup. Newberry would host the Villages right now. Cocoa would host Berkeley Prep based on this. So your 1-8 matchup, your 4-5 matchup, those 2 seeds would actually not host a playoff game. They would go on the road to play district champs because that's the rule. Higher seeded at large goes to the lower seeded district champ in the first round only, but then after that, the seeding number takes precedence. So that's how it goes. All right. And David Kozlowski says, wow, the FHA BCS could strike. Wow, I like it. We got some jokes around here tonight. But yeah, let's roll along here to Region 3 in Class 2A. Again, we got a lot of the Gulf Coast area here. That's where it's been impacted. Cardinal Mooney still sitting there at number 1. Again, not a lot of changes here. Kings Academy, even though they're 7-0, they haven't moved up. But Cardinal Mooney leading with 17.934 on their rating. Bishop Rowe 15.057. And Kings Academy sitting there at a 12.220. So as you're looking at it, the only changes that have been made is that Tarpon Springs has moved down the spot. Calvary Christian Fort Lauderdale has moved up a spot. And as it goes right now, based upon the rankings, Cardinal Mooney would host Somerset Canyons. Glade Central would host Calvary Christian out of Fort Lauderdale. Bishop Verreau, right this second, would host Lakewood based upon the ranking. It could be very interesting to see between Lakewood and Tarpon Springs who wins out of District 2A9. And then you got Kings Academy would host Tarpon Springs. So we'll see what happens there in that region. And good evening to Eugene McKenzie. Good to see you as well. Friday night at Newberry. And I know it was a disappointing loss there for the Bradford Tornadoes. And but Newberry, hey, they just had the better game plan. And I even know that Coach Jamie Rogers said, hey, they gave them all the credit and they deserved all that credit. So, oh yeah, yes, Emory, Newberry did beat Bradford. I was at that game 21-7, and it makes sense why would Bradford go to Lake Placid now instead. A big sigh of relief for the Green Dragons not to make that. Yes, that flip it now because Newberry has the district championship. Bradford would be on the road in this situation, but we'll see what happens here as we go along with the next few weeks here as we progress here with the remainder of the season. And Gene McKenzie said Newberry was a very impressive. They deserved that win. They looked good. Yes, they did look really good. And they Jarquez Carter 4 sacks in the second half, and that's part of the reason why Bradford was not on the winning side of the scoreboard for the first time this season. But as we roll along here, we got 2A Region 3 out of the way. We're going to go to 2A Region 4. Since the last time we were on, Booker T. Washington, who was the number 1 seed the last time we were on, has slid back 2 spots. To number 3, Immaculate Cell has risen up a spot. They're now the number 1 overall seed, right to second in the region. Cardinal Gibbons sitting there at number 2, jumping up 2 spots here. So as it stands right now, what's interesting is Immaculate Cell, by looking at this, they would actually be on the road here at Somerset Silver Palms because their one loss is to Booker T. Washington. So Booker T. Washington is actually in the driver's seat for the district championship in 2A15. And so keep that note in mind there. Now, Somerset Silver Palms would be the district champ out of 2A16 based upon the rankings right now. But they're ranked currently 9th. Miami Springs would be the first team out, but Miami Springs has the better power rating at minus 3.339. Somerset Silver Palms 4.178, but they would take that 8th seed over Miami Springs. But right now, you would look at it, Immaculate Cell be on the road. Monsignor Pace would host Ransom Everglades. In that 4-5 bracket, that 2-7 bracket would be Gibbons hosting North Miami Beach. And then, of course, Gibbons in Miami Carroll City. Those two teams would be sitting there playing. Booker T would host them probably at Curtis or Travis Powell, depending on if that was to come to fruition. So that's a look right there at Class 2A Region 4. So we're going to go to Class 3A. We're going to do Class 3A, and then we're going to take a water break, and then we'll do 5A, 6A. We'll do 4, 5, 6, and 7As after the water break. But let's go ahead and do 3A Region 1. Class 3A Region 1. As I kind of alluded to, that we would be seeing Terry Parker. Well, you see them right there, sitting there at that number 8 spot right here. As we start we're looking at 3A Region 1, Reigns sitting there still at that number 1 spot. Gabi, who wrapped up their district, they go on their district 3A, District 2. Gabi's going to be in the playoffs. They're sitting there now at a number 2 seed, 5-2 right now on the season. Baker County slides back a spot at 4-1. Bishop Kenny is up a spot, and Wakulla is down. Wakulla is slid back a couple spots since the last time we were on. And again, you got Bishop Kenny a 4-5 matchup, Gabi a 2-7 matchup, Baker County at a 3-6 matchup with Menendez. And yes, and wait a second. Hold on a second. You're right. Yeah, Bay. Yes, Bay. Yes, David Klozowski. Yes, we've got Gabi and Bay. Bay did win their district championship too. Congratulations to your alma mater. And Bay is sitting there at that number 7 seed. So let's talk about this. Reigns would host right now. Bishop Kenny would host. Gabi, because their district champ would be district champ versus district champ, Gabi would host that game. So Bay would not get a home game in the playoffs because it would be district champ versus district champ. And then Baker County, Menendez, those would be 2 at-large teams. And Baker County would host Menendez in that 3-6 spot. So there you go. Class 3A Region 1 for you as we roll along here. All right. O'Galley in Region 2. Let's talk about Region 2 here. We've got Crystal River sitting there at the 8th spot. O'Galley at 1. O'Galley, we'll talk about this here because there's another situation like we've had in several of the brackets here already. O'Galley 1. Got Bishop Moore 2. Mount Dora 3. Mount Dora actually has risen a spot. They have traded spots with between Mount Dora and Dunellen. Have traded the spots between 3 and 4. O'Galley sitting with a 20.019 rating and Bishop Moore 17.604. So is there a chance that Bishop Moore could catch O'Galley for the number 1 seed? That's a possibility. So over here in the next few weeks. Now the situation is you got Crystal River at 8, but Crystal River is actually the 10th ranked team in Region 2. And that's because their rating is 0.211. And we've had a couple questions about South Sumner. So South Sumner, 5.723 is their rating right now. They would be the 8th team right now in the rankings. But because Crystal River is the high, would be the district champ, they would supplant South Sumner in that number 8 spot. So with that said, right now South Sumner is still on the outside looking in for a playoff spot. But keep an eye on Titusville. Their rating is 5.816. If Titusville drops another game, you could expect South Sumner to potentially jump Titusville and go into that number 7 spot. But as it stands right now, looking at it, O'Galley would host, Dunellen would host, Bishop Moore would host, and Mount Dora would potentially be a host as well in the playoffs. But we will see what happens here as we roll along here. Actually, let me check here. Hold on. Hold on. I believe Eastside beat Dunellen. Hold on. Let me double check that because I believe Eastside didn't beat Dunellen. So Eastside actually would host Mount Dora in this situation if Eastside wins out right this second. So there's a potential chance. I actually believe Mount Dora would actually be on the road at Eastside, not the other way around. So we will roll along with that for right now. All right. Going into Region 3, I know this is Emery Smith's region with Hardy, and Hardy is not in the bracket now. Last time we were on the show, Hardy was in the bracket at number 8 seed. They are now the first team out here. And got a good question here. I'm going to pop this up as we go along here. Maurice J. Smith says district champs seeded 1 through 3. Are they seeded based on they're seeded based on the power ranking? So district champs are guaranteed into the playoffs. They are seeded. So you see some of the situation here, like Crystal River we had in Region 2. Crystal River is ranked 10th, but they would get the number 8 seed because they would be the highest rate. They would be a district champ, and they are guaranteed that at least at minimum a number 8 spot into the playoffs, bumping out whoever that 8 seed number 8 team technically was, which would be South Sunder at this particular point. So that's how it works. It's almost kind of like true seeding, but there's some modifications, obviously, and that's what it is right this second. So hopefully that answers your question there, Maurice. As we roll along here, Mulberry, number 1, they're rating 9.375. Jefferson sitting there at 7.644. And we've talked about it before, but I think Region 3 is one of the weakest regions in class, not just Class 3A, but the entire state for any classification. Region 3 is just a very, very weak region, in my opinion. And you can see that here. Sarasota Booker 3.809 is their rating right now. And they're sitting there at the 3 seed. And Nature Coast, a 4 seed right now, 2.347. And it's interesting to note, Hudson is 2 and 5. Robinson's 1 and 4, but they would be the 7 and 8 seeds. And as it stands right now, Mulberry would host. Trying to look at it here, 3A10. Okay, so Chamberlain would host that. Nature Coast would host. Jefferson would host in the 2-7 matchup, and then Booker would host in the 3-6 matchup right now as it stands as we talk. So that's how it looks in Region 3 in Class 3A. And Emery Smith says, at this moment, I don't see Hardy making the playoffs, and I don't think we're really that deserving of a playoff spot either. But with whatever small chance we have left, I think we absolutely need to beat Northport this week in order to make the playoffs. Plus, Tampa Robinson losing a couple more games would help us. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Emery. And that's the thing. And Robinson, if the Hurricane had not come through, they would have played. They would have made up their game with Seminole last night. But instead, Seminole played Lake Mary, which was a district game, more important, obviously. And we'll talk about Lake Mary Seminole coming up in Class 7A. And we got Class 3A Region 4 here. Miami Central still holding that 1 seed, Northwestern 2. Nothing's changed there since the last time we were on doing the show. But there's been some trade-offs in spots. Key West up a spot, down a spot. Miami Jackson moves up. Somerset Academy, Island Coast, they flip-flop spots as well. Lely is in there, but Stranahan has made the appearance now. And St. Brendan, who was in the rankings in the bracket the last time we were on, they are now the second team out, but Stranahan has now made some push here, and they are sitting there looking at a number 8 seed, which actually that should be Stranahan, not Miami Northwestern in that 8 seed. So I apologize there. So, all right. So we're going to take a water break here, and then we're going to come back, and then we're going to talk 4A, 5A, 6A, and 7A here on the North Florida Blitz right here on FloridaHSFootball.com. We're going to take a water break, 2-minute water break, and we'll be right back right here, right after this. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back here to the Drive the State show here on FlooridaHSFootball.com. And if you got a question, you got a comment, got anything you want to share with us, just hit the comment box and we'll share those and post those up at the thing. And Emery, there was a glitch. Yes, I understand that was that should have been number 8 should have been Stranahan. So yeah, that was the thing. There was a little glitch in the thing when I was getting the graphic done for the bracket there. So as we roll along here. All right, as we roll along here on the show here, let's do this here. We'll bring it back up here on the screen here with the Class 4A Region 1 bracket. As we roll along here, we've got St. Augustine still sitting there at the number 1 spot. We have not missed a beat with St. Augustine. They've been sitting there since we last did the show, so still sitting at number 1. Choctaw still sitting there at number 2. Looking at it, you got Escambia and Riverside. Both have gained ground here, moving up to the number 3 and number 4 spots. Pine Forest rising up another a spot as well. Rickards has taken a slide back 3 spots here, while Arnold and has moved up a spot, while Ed White has slid a spot back. And St. Augustine was 16.859, Choctaw 13.475 under rating. And honestly, looking at that, looking at those teams, both St. Augustine and Choctaw fighting right there for the number 1 and number 2 spots. So that'll be a battle right down to the end here. As we roll along and looking at it, right now, St. Augustine would host Ed White in this situation. St. Augustine hosting Ed White. Riverside would host Pine Forest. Choctaw would host Arnold. And then Escambia would host Rickards in this situation. Some people have asked me about Columbia over the time, but Columbia sitting there, their rating 1.380. Despite beating Ridgeview, it has not done anything to move them up, and they're going to have to win out in major hopes that Columbia will actually make the playoffs. So Columbia could be looking at a year of not making the postseason for the first time in probably, I can't even say when, because it's usually Columbia and playoffs are synonymous with each other. And yes, we've got, David Kozlowski said our at number 7, they play Mosley Friday night for the county championship. It could be a trap game for Mosley. Yeah, it could be a potential trap game, but Arnold's schedule, that's telling. Look at Arnold's schedule. I think Mosley has had to play the better schedule, and I think that benefits Mosley for that game. And that's probably one of the reasons why I kind of didn't put that game on the pick 6 for North Florida Blitz, is because I'm just like, I think the schedule's going to come back to haunt Arnold here in this situation here for at least this game. So, and Zach Lesnar, shout out to Arnold, 6-2 after scoring just 12 points all last year. The new coaching staff is doing an amazing job. And yes, and Davis Kozlowski says expecting a running clock in the second half of that game, and that's a potential chance. There's a potential chance that could happen. And yes, it definitely is indeed that kind of situation there where, hey, we could see what happens with the running clocks. But anyways, let's roll along here. We got more to go through here over the next 20, 25 minutes as we roll along here. Jones still sitting there at that number 1 spot. Actually, the top 3 spots in 4A Region 2 have not changed here since the last time we were on 2 weeks ago. Jones, Vanguard, Lake Wells, all 1, 2, 3 in that order. Leesburg has jumped up 3 spots now thanks to their win over Gainesville last night. Leesburg now up to number 4. Lake Hanto drops to number 5. Zephyr Hills down to number 6. New Smyrna Beach is up a spot, while Rockledge is down 2 spots. And as it stands right now, Jones would host Rockledge. Leesburg would host Lake Hanto. Vanguard would host New Smyrna Beach. And Lake Wells would actually, in this situation, Lake Wells would go on the road to Zephyr Hills in that 3-6 matchup. But yes, indeed. All right, hey, you know what? We're about to get to the region that Jesuit in it, and we've got a You know what? Yeah, Emory. Yes, I think they do play this week. Lake Wells and Jones, they do play this week, and that'll decide some things real quick, like especially between those two teams in District 4A7. All right, so Dunbar, here we go into 4A Region 3. Dunbar, last time we were on, Dunbar was number 3. They are now up to number 1. Port Charlotte is down to 3. Naples still steady at 2. This is what it looks like. 4A District 12, those are the first 3 teams. Those are all from District 4A 12. Dunbar 14.613, Naples 13.997, and Port Charlotte 11.287. It's all very close. All very close between those 3 teams alone. Yes. All right, looking at it, here we go. You got sitting there, you got the 1-8 matchup, Dunbar Osceola. Dunbar would host Osceola. Clearwater sitting there holding that number 4 seed. They did beat River Ridge, and River Ridge now 6-1 on the season. But how about that? River Ridge got their first loss of the season 2 weeks ago and haven't played since. But that jumped Clearwater up since the last time we were on. And River Ridge fell back 2 spots. So right now you got Clearwater, St. Petersburg. Clearwater would host that game. In that situation, Naples would host Jesuit in the 2-7 matchup. And then you got Port Charlotte would be hosting River Ridge in that 3-6 matchup. And let's look at this right now. I got a comment here that I want to bring up from Daryl Britt. And he's like, I know this is a Florida page. Wanted to give a huge shout out to the fans at Jesuit High School out of Tampa. Valdosta went down there back September, and very nice fans, and they were very great hospitality. And you know what, Daryl, thank you so much. I'm glad to be able to share that comment here on our show here. I hope y'all are doing well up there in Valdosta. I know Hurricane Helene impacted y'all greatly there, and I know I see your image, your profile picture says pray for Valdosta, and I know that Helene went right through there with the eye, and I know y'all suffered a lot of damage, and I hope y'all are doing well, and I hope the road to recovery is going strongly for y'all up there in Valdosta, Georgia. And Emery says Port Charlotte has been impressive this year. Tough games against Dunbar and Naples remaining. Yes, indeed. And that district, that's why, if you look at those 3 teams, they could all be ranked 1, 2, 3 at the end of the season because they are all playing tough schedules against some really good quality opponents. All right, let's roll into 4A Region 4, where we see Miami Norland still sitting there at 1, American Heritage Plantation still sitting there at 2. Yeah, that game last night didn't really move anything in terms of the barometer of the playoff rankings, but Miami Norland's 21.498. Now, here's the interesting thing. Keep an eye on the 2-3 matchup, the 2 and the 3 seeds. American Heritage right now, 14.749, Plantation 14.629. So it's that close between the 2 and 3 seeds. So we could see some flip-flopping here. The last time we were on, John Carroll, Fort Pierce, John Carroll, they were in the next 2 out. Because despite the fact their rating was low, but despite the fact they were undefeated. Since then, they have now risen up 5 spots since the last time we were on. They are now at the number 4 spot. They are 7-0 right now. Their rating now 10.688. And then you got Archbishop McCarthy, who was 4-8-15 the first 4 spots, but they have flip-flopped. They have dropped a couple spots. Archbishop McCarthy sitting there at 5. So right now, as it looks, Hialeah, they've been sitting there around that 9 spot. Now they're finally up to 8, and it's kind of bouncing around right now. So, but Hialeah sitting there at that 8 spot and being a district champ, potential district champ. So, Miami Norland would host Hialeah. John Carroll would host Archbishop McCarthy. American Heritage would actually host Jensen Beach here, and then Plantation would actually go on the road to Dillard, because Dillard would be the district champ coming out of 4A14. So right, the second Plantation would go on the road and face Dillard in that 3-6 matchup. And Daryl answered the question. They say they're doing very well as far as the recovery in our city. It's very resilient. Valdosta currently 7-0. Yeah, you got to keep watching that football on the other side of the state line. Remember, a lot of Florida teams like to play Valdosta and Lowndes. Those 2 teams up there in Lowndes County and Valdosta, Georgia. So we're glad to hear that Valdosta is doing well, and the road to recovery is going very well. So we'll keep y'all on our thoughts here as y'all recover here, and because I know, as y'all know, that we're dealing with the situation, not only Helene but Hurricane Milton. So, and Oh, and we got some people from South Georgia. I love it. I love it. Thank y'all for tuning in from South Georgia because hey, our football down here is good too. What y'all got up there too in Georgia. So hey, we keep good company with each other between Florida and Georgia. South Georgia checking in. Shout out to Gadsden County. They came up here to Coffee County and Douglas, Georgia, and gave us a scare. A lot of Florida teams played some good Georgia teams earlier this year in non-region play, and they were pretty good. Gadsden's only loss has been to Coffee County, yes, and that right there is reason why Gadsden County is sitting there holding a number 1 seed in Class 2A Region 1. All right, that's look at Class 4A Region 4. Let's roll into 5A Region 1, where I know some of our Panama City, our Panhandle followers are watching, and this is where we're going to give you some of that. And here is a look at that 5A Region 1 bracket. Right now, as it stands, Mainland would come to Mosley, Ponte Vedra would host Beachside, Middleburg would go to Niceville, and Lincoln would go to Lincoln would host Fleming Island. So, to answer Jonathan Ferris's question, is there a chance that Lincoln hosts playoff games since they're district champs? Yes, as long as they stay in that top 4, they stay in that top 4, they'll be fine. They fall into that 5-6 range. There could be some iffiness there. So. Just if Lincoln stays in that top 4, they'll be fine. All right. Yeah, Chris Bay that said representing South Georgia. Yeah, I appreciate the people coming from the state line watching what we're doing here. I do really appreciate that very much so. But yes, Dominic Kozlowski says we could have a seeding issue in 5A Region 1. If Niceville wins their remaining games and Mosley wins out, you could have a district runner-up, but Niceville 9-1 is the number 1 seed and undefeated district champion. Mosley is number 2 seed. Yes. So in that situation, what would happen here is this. So if say let's for lack of better words here, or for better of trying to lay this out on the table here. The situation would be here. Let's just go ahead and do this. Let's say Niceville's number 1 right now and Mosley's number 2. Let's just theoretically, let's just do that. What would you have happen here is that Niceville would actually go on the road to Mainland because Mainland would be the district champion in their district. So Niceville would go on the road to Mainland. Niceville, and then what would happen for Mosley is that Mosley's the number 2 seed. Mosley would end up hosting Middleburg. So that it really actually you're Niceville. You don't want to. I'll tell you this right now, based upon what's going on right now. You're Niceville. You don't want to be the number 1 seed. You do not want to be that number 1 seed because you could end up on the road on a very long road trip in the first round. So you're Niceville. You're actually liking this number 2 seed right now because you get a home playoff game against Middleburg. If you're number 1, you may end up on the road at Mainland. Now, here's the other situation. What happens in Middleburg and Mainland flip-flop spots? All right, Middleburg goes to 8, Mainland goes to 7. All right. Well, all right. Okay. So if it's Niceville 1, Mosley 2, all right. Well, the situation here is that, okay, but it would be Mainland going to Mosley still in the 2-7 spot, and it would be still situation. Then Niceville would host Middleburg. That would be the only scenario that I would see that actually works out to Niceville's benefit, being the 1 seed. But right this second, if you just flip flop them right now, it would not benefit Niceville no matter what. So there you go. All right. So let's see. So let's go ahead and roll along here. Oh, Chris Pace, thank you so much for sharing that up there. The fans in Georgia. Hey, we love doing this and love showing off what we got here in Florida. And I know y'all, again, like y'all said, y'all got some good football in Georgia. So we definitely appreciate that here as well. And I'm trying to look here and I appreciate everybody sharing here. And David Kolskowski says Mainland will probably move up to a 6 or a 5. Well, and yes, they could move up to a 6 or 5. It also depends. Let's see what happens between Beachside and Middleburg this week. Those two teams are going at it, and both teams had losses this last week. So we will see what happens there, both for the Beachside Barracudas and the Middleburg Broncos. All right. 5A Region 2 here as we roll along here. Lakeland still number 1 seed. Nothing's changed there in terms of Lakeland being in the top spot. However, we have had a couple of changes since we're last on. in the last couple of weeks, Gaither has had to forfeit 2 games. And this is why the FSA stressed so much, do not follow necessarily what's on MaxPreps, because forfeits don't factor in on the MaxPreps rankings itself. Well, here we are. We are in a situation now that we have had forfeits, and Gaither took a big hit to their ranking because of the 2 forfeits. And Gaither went from being around number 3 to down to number 8. So the 2 forfeits have cost Gaither 5 spots in the playoff rankings here in their region, in Region 2. And as it stands right now, Edgewater's up 3 spots since the last time we were on. Tampa Bay Tech down a spot. So right now you got Lakeland, Edgewater, Tampa Bay Tech, and Springstead all sitting there holding the top 4 spots right now. But looking at it this way, Lakeland 22.444, they're way ahead. I think they've got the number 1 seed locked up in Region 2. I don't think it's going to be no contest, honestly, to think about this. I mean, and then Edgewater is going to have to fight really hard to try to catch Lakeland to get that number 1 seed. But I think there's going to be a fight between 2 and 3 for Edgewater and Tampa Bay Tech right now, maybe even Springstead, because it's all very closed. 13.357 for Edgewater, 12.231 for Tampa Bay Tech, and then 11.176 for Springstead. So, and it stands right now, Lakeland would host Gaither, Springstead would host Sebring, Edgewater would host Lake Gibson, and then Tampa Bay Tech would host East Bay. Those would be the playoff pairings. And, I mean, Emery's going to bring up a good question here. I'll pull up once we get to Region 4, and we'll talk about that question and answer it. Manatee, Region 3, Manatee still sitting there at 18.553. Riverdale's at 13.792. Not much change between the 1 and 2 seeds. Fort Myers, North Fort Myers have flip-flopped around between 3 and 4. Charlotte's up a spot. Pinellas Park is up a spot. Immokalee's down 2 spots. Right now, as it stands, Immokalee would win 5A-12, but they would have to go on the road to play Manatee in that 1A matchup. 4-5 matchup, we're looking at the situation where it would be 2 district champs, and North Fort Myers would host Cape Coral in that situation. What we're looking at here, Riverdale would host Pinellas Park, and then Fort Myers would end up hosting Charlotte, and that's a rematch right there if that happens there in Region 3. Region 4, let's roll along to Region 4 here. St. Thomas Aquinas still holding that number 1 spot, rating 16.741. Delray Beach Atlantic is at 16.230. So, yes, St. Thomas Aquinas did suffer a bit of a hit there with that loss to Chaminade-Madonna. And so it could be a battle for the number 1 spot. So it's 16.741 to 16.230 between St. Thomas and Atlantic. So it's very, very close between 1 and 2 right now based upon the FHSAA MaxPreps power rankings. And then Blanche Ely 13.026. So as you see it right now, St. Thomas Aquinas would host North Miami, Miramar would host Coconut Creek, Atlantic would host Palm Bay Heritage, and Blanche Ely actually would most likely go on the road here in this situation. Blanche Ely would actually go on the road to Martin County, because Martin County would be the highest rated team out of 5A13 coming out of that district. And that's how it rolls and works here. So, all right. As we go into our final 2 classifications here, we got 6A Region 1. We got some panhandle teams, obviously North Florida here as well. So here we go. Let's take a look at this right now, because we do actually have some interesting things here in terms of teams that are in and out now among the rankings. A couple weeks ago, we were talking about Torrey Creek being in the playoff bracket. Well, goodbye to Torrey Creek after that loss last night, getting blown up. But Beholtz, well, your playoff ranking, you're not even in the top 10 right now. So Torrey Creek is out of there. Nice still sitting there at that number 1 spot, 5-0. Bartram Trail sitting there at the 8 seed now. Bartram Trail is now back in the mix. They were not to be heard from the last time we were on. I meant to bring up this question from Emery Smith, and he's asked Lakeland versus St. Thomas Aquinas in Class 5A state championship. And yes, that's a possibility, Emery. Yes, so keep that in mind. But there's some other teams that may have some possibility of staying, like Mosley, Niceville. There's some other teams, so keep that in mind. All right, back to 6A Region 1. All right, so we got Nice at 1, Bartram Trail at 8. Bartram Trail's back in the mix now. Evans has risen up now. They were inside they were like number 10 the last time we were on. They are now up to number 7. And as you see, Oak Cliff and Mandarin right now sitting in that 4-5 spot. They play each other for the district championship in 6A2 next week. And then you got Pace Evans 2-7, and then Buchholz a 3-6. So here's the situation that we've got going on here in terms of what will happen. Nice would host Barton Trail. Oakley would host Mandarin. Pace would host Evans. And then right now, as it based upon this, Buchholz would have to go on the road to Oviedo in the first round. So just based upon that, that's how it would look right now. And Reno joins in and says Buchholz have enough to go all the way. And Reno, not this year. I don't think they have it this year. They're just not. They may go one. They may go 2, 3. They could potentially like go too deep. Too deep. Here's the situation. I think this is what's going to happen. Say if it's Pace and Buchholz, well, Buchholz, you get past Oviedo. All right, you're gonna have a second road trip. It's gonna be a longer road trip to go to the Panhandle, and then it just we always joke about it, but it's true. There is the Panhandle jinx. It's not been so much the issue in recent years, but there's always been the Panhandle jinx. You take a long road trip from the one side of the state, especially like Jacksonville or Gainesville, having to go all the way out to the Panhandle, especially out towards Pensacola. It definitely can do a number on teams, and it's done that before. Teams over the years, the Panhandle jinx, as they call it. So, all right, let's go to Region 2, where Armwood is still sitting there pretty at the number 1 spot, and they got a rating of 21.443. The next team, Durant, at number 2, 11.303. Osceola is at 11.057. So, don't be surprised if Osceola eventually catches Durant for that number 2 spot, but it's going to be hard catching Armwood for that number 1 spot in Region 2. Armwood, Melbourne, and 1-8. Bart Durant, Southlake 2-7, and Osceola 3-6 with the Vieira in that bracket. And I saw a comment here, and I'm going to go pull it up here. And Jonathan Shaw, yes, Southlake is leading there in District 6A, Class 6A, District 4. And sure enough, we're Southlake sitting at a number 7 seed right now. And it's a 6A District 4. Jonathan, actually, I want to say, no, sorry, Jonathan, it's 6A District 6 is your number, actually. So where will Southlake be in 6A? Well, here you go. In 6A Region 2, in District 6A6, Southlake sitting there at number 7 right now. All right, as we roll along here, as we roll through the rest of the show here, we've got 6A Region 3, Wiregrass Ranch, still the number 1 seed right now. Nothing's changed. Palmetto down there in Manatee County, still sitting there at the number 2 spot, but it's a close race between the 1 and 2 seeds at 16.990 for Wiregrass and 16.686 for Palmetto. So it's a very, very close race. Mitchell at 3, West Boca at 4. Those 2 teams have flip-flopped since the last time we were on. And yes, as it stands right now, Wiregrass Ranch would host Lakewood Ranch so basically Lakewood Ranch has now popped into the rankings here and up a spot. And but Wiregrass would host Lakewood Ranch. West Boca would host Parish Community. Palmetto would host Largo. And then Mitchell would host Leonard as it stands right now in Class 6A Region 3. All right, let's go to 6A Region. Yeah, let me go to the 6A Region 4 here. We've got Miami Southridge here sitting there at the number 1 seed, 17.122 on their rankings. And then we got Homestead sitting there at the 4-5. Homestead Monarch in the 4-5 spot. We see West Broward and Piper have traded spots, but it's not. It's very close. West Broward 11.1744, Piper 11.164. And Homestead now sitting there at 4. They have made some moves here, but 6.022. Homestead was 7 the last time we were on here, but now they are up to number 4. So it looks right now, Miami Southridge 1 would host Nova. Homestead would host, looking at it here, yeah, Homestead would host Monarch. West Broward would host South Broward. Piper would host Doral Academy. So that's how it looks in Class 6A Region 4. All right, let's roll along to 7A Region 1 as we get into Class 7A. Yes, we're finally there. Class 7A. Lake Mary, now the number 1 team in 7A Region 1 after getting that win over Seminole last night. All right. Lake Mary, their rating now 17.900, Seminole at 15.724. And no change for Orange City University, but Flagler Palm Coast is up a spot. Spruce Creek is up a spot. Creekside's up a spot. DeLand has fallen 3 spots. And right now you see Boone sitting there at the 8th spot. Boone is actually the number 9 team. Haggerty is actually number 8, but Boone would boot Haggerty out for that number 8 spot as being the highest rated team right now in 7A District 4. So as it stands right now, Lake Mary would host Boone. Actually, what's interesting here is I'd say this right now. Both teams, I would say this right now, as I want to say with Flagler Palm Coast, their only losses to Orange City University. So right now, as I would say, with Spruce Creek having that big win over DeLand, in a technicality, Flagler Palm Coast could host Spruce Creek, but if Spruce Creek ends up being the district champs, which I feel like they may be right now, where they're headed, Spruce Creek would host Flagler Palm Coast in this situation in that 4-5 spot. Seminole would host DeLand, and then Orange City University would actually go on the road to Creekside to play Creekside in that 3-6 matchup. So, yeah, kind of interesting there in terms of what 7A Region 1 looks like right now. 7A Region 2, as we roll along here, as we start to wrap this thing up, Ben is still sitting there at number 1, 20.728, and we'll answer that question here in a moment. Zachary, I see your question. I'll get to you in just a moment here on that one. Venice, 20.728. They're way ahead of West Orange, who is 12.573. Actually, the top 4 have not changed in 7A Region 2. Now, we got an interesting situation. Ridge Community was in the top 8 the last time we were on. They have fallen to 10, but because of they would be the highest rated district champ rate, the second out of 7A 6. They would go into that number 8 speed, bumping out Alonzo, who's actually the number 8 team. And Sumner is actually the number 9 team in that region. Ridge Community is actually number 10. And so Ridge Community 4.502, whereas Alonzo has a 6.238. So there could be some interesting things here happen over the next few weeks. So, but as it stands right now, Venice would host Ridge Community. Strawberry Crest would host Plant City. And then West Orange would host Apopka. Newsom would host Ocoee. So that's how it looks in 7A Region 2 right now. 7A Region 3, we've got Dr. Phillips sitting there at the number 1 seed. So 7A 9, Dr. Phillips at 1, Treasure Coast at 8. Treasure Coast at 8 still, despite the fact that they finally actually won a game. And we go rolling along here. That was the biggest change right there is Dr. Phillips, Palm Beach Central. They've traded places 1-2 spot. So Dr. Phillips now 1, Palm Beach Central 2, but the rating 17.957 and compared to 15.450 between Dr. Phillips and Palm Beach Central right now. Jupiter, Vero Beach holding on, same spot. Toho, Pacalaga, and Fort Pierce Central flip-flop spots, and then Lake Nona, Treasure Coast still holding on their spots. As it stands right now, Dr. Phillips would host Treasure Coast. Vero Beach would actually go on the road to Toho because Toho would be the actually the highest rated team coming out of that district and would be most likely district champs. Palm Beach Central would host Lake Nona, and then Jupiter would host Fort Pierce Central. So Vero Beach could end up on the road potentially if they don't win their district, which actually, I'm sorry. Vero Beach would actually host. I'm sorry. My apologies. Vero Beach would host Toho. It would be battle district champs. Now, to keep an eye on this, actually, I'm sorry. Vero Beach would actually host Toho because it would be district champ versus district champ. I'm sorry. My apologies there. But Vero Beach, 9.062. Toho, 1.797. So I feel like the top 4 are pretty safe. Toho's got a long way to catch up here in terms of the bracket here. But I want to bring up a couple questions here. Emery William Smith says, I wonder how many points Venice gives up to CCC this week. Either way, they should be heavily favored. And it could be interesting. That'll be a great battle here. And that's a game that will have a feature on the Gulf Coast Blitz coming up here tomorrow night, 8:30 here on FortHSFootball.com and the FortHSFootball.com social media networks. Hopefully my voice will be well rested. Sorry, gotta have my water. And Zachary Holbach says, if Lecanto wins their district championship, will they move on the spot in the playoffs? It depends on how the rankings shake out. It is all going to depend on how that shakes out. Let's go to 7A region for the last region here. Yes. That's the last region. So, yes, let's go ahead and just give ourselves a round of applause. We're finally here. All right. Columbus now up to the number 1 spot. Boca Raton down to number 2. Miami Palmetto has risen up a spot. Last time we were on, how about Western? They were not even nowhere to be found. They were not even in the same area. They were not even in their own area code in the rankings. So, but now they are. So they are now up to number 4. Santa Lucia's down 2 spots. Goldman down 2 spots since the last time we were on. Spanish River down a spot. South Dade now up a spot. And as it stands right now, Columbus would host South Dade, Western would host Santa Lucia's, Boca Raton would host Spanish River, and Miami Palmetto would host Goldman in 7A Region 4. And that is a look at all of the playoff brackets here as we roll along here and wrap up this Drive the State show number 3 here for the 2024 season. And definitely appreciate everybody joining us here as we do this Drive the State show each and every week here. We're going to do it Tuesday nights now starting at 9 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. That way we can do the playoff rankings, kind of get y'all tuned in more for the playoff rankings as we go through the rest of the season. Well, we were planning some changes here that we had here. Let's talk about this because Christopher Like brings this up and says the extra week will be a major game changer. Scott Hansen, NFL Red Zone, by the way, people, if you know who he's talking about. Scott Hansen would say week 11 will be the ultimate witching hour in the state. The ultimate witching hour. I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much, Christopher, for that. And Emery Williams says, enjoy listening to you, Josh. Appreciate that. And Marino says, woohoo. Yes. All right. So as we were planning to do a special Drive the State show on Sunday, November 3rd, once the brackets came out. Well, obviously that's changed now. That Sunday, November 3rd is off the table. We will be doing Saturday, November 9th at some point. I know it's college football watching hour that day. I get it. But we got playoff brackets to go through that day. And so Saturday, November 9th, once we kind of get an idea of when the FHSAA will release the playoff brackets, we'll set our show up. What we'll do is we'll kind of have a rough idea of what it's going to look like, but once the playoff brackets come out, we'll probably do the show within a probably about 3 to 4 hours after the brackets come out. We'll see what kind of how things look, because a lot's going to change here, especially with the makeup games, especially that are going to happen probably on November 6th and November 7th. So, all right, Chris Price says, great show, Josh from South Georgia. We'll be checking in from here on out. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate the support from South Georgia because, hey, like y'all's football, we have great football here too in Florida, and it's highly respectable between what Florida and Georgia are in terms of our football. And not only if we can pay our coaches more, we'd be doing even better. So let's keep that in mind, people. And Jonathan Ferris asks, is it North Florida Christian? Well, Jonathan, let me go back to it. I got it right here. 1A. I mean, North Florida Christian right now is a minus 8.709. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. And they're number 10. And Trinity Catholic is sitting there with minus 6.917 in Region 1 in Class 1A. It depends on how Impact Christian finishes, but North Florida Christian is going to have they got McClay coming up. I mean, you still got to play McClay. I mean, I just don't think NFC is going to make it this year. And this would be a first for North Florida Christian in a long time. So we'll see what happens. And great show as always. Well, I appreciate that, Jonathan. Thank you very much. And thank you for everybody for listening and tuning in here to the Drive the State show. Of course, we got all our other shows normally would be Monday and Tuesday nights, but tomorrow night we'll have special editions of the Central Florida Blitz and Gulf Coast Blitz for you at 7:30 for the Central Florida Blitz and Gulf Coast Blitz at 8:30. And Reno says, great show, Josh. Appreciate it, Reno. Thank you for tuning in, as always, everybody. And with that said, it is time to wrap this thing up here. Appreciate y'all watching the Drive the State show. We'll be back next week, 9 o'clock on the Drive the State show on Tuesday night. And again, our shows tomorrow, Central Florida Blitz and the Gulf Coast Blitz. Appreciate everybody. Thank you so much, and have a great night.